Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faerie Conclave. This is episode 79. I'm your host, Alec. My pronouns are he, him, and today I have a really exciting Commander deck interview to talk about with special guest Proxy. How are you doing today, Proxy?
I am absolutely knackered. Work kicked my ass today, but I am good to be here.
I love it. Yeah, so it was kind of a fun challenge to get this episode scheduled just because I think we're about 10 or 11 hours time difference from each other. It's like afternoon for me. I think it's pretty late for you, isn't it?
It is 7:30 p.m.
Yep, sounds about right. So yeah, kind of a fun one. I don't tell my boss, but I am actually, in the middle of a work day right now, but I work from home, so I'm still checking my emails. If you're listening to this, everything's under control. But yeah, so I'm glad that we could make this work and that we could get you on for an episode. Proxy, would you like to just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself and maybe kind of your background in Magic or Commander?
I can certainly do that. I am Proxy, also known as MTGoth on Twitter. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm pretty rad. You've probably seen my tweets because the algorithm is feeding them to everyone and it's boosting my ego so high. I've only been playing Magic for 4 years. I love Commander, and Commander's pretty much my entire history of the game, as is also the lore, because I'm obsessed with that and I keep buying books and I shouldn't keep buying books.
I totally understand that. I just bought the it wasn't necessarily like one of the actual books, but I got the Innistrad like art book, which is just full of so much lore and so much information on Innistrad, and I can't get enough of that. I love it so much. And yeah, so I was excited. You actually reached out to me on Twitter and literally just said, I hear you talk about decks, and then in all caps, rats on motorcycles. And I was like, yep, say no more. We're doing this. So, I'm really excited to talk about it. Anyone who knows me knows that one of my first Commander decks was Marrow-Gnawer, which is all about rats. It just makes rat tokens upon rat tokens, and it's one of my oldest Commander decks that I've had around for a long time, so I enjoy rats quite a bit. And so I'm excited to talk about a different kind of flavor of rats in Commander. But before we get into it, let's do our community spotlight for the episode. You actually suggested this person for the community spotlight, which I think is pretty perfect because I had an episode with J-Ro / the Unsummoned Skull a few weeks ago, which was a ton of fun. So yeah, Proxy, would you like to shout out J-Ro / the Unsummoned Skull for our community spotlight?
Yes. Oh my god. You're going to have to tell me when to stop, because otherwise it's just going to be an hour of me gushing over J-Ro. I absolutely adore this fella. If you Google the most lovable Scrunko, he appears first result. He's incredible. He always seems to have time for anyone. He's so nice. And I just want him to be happy, and he deserves everything good that ever comes his way. Yeah. Also, he writes for EDH Rec, so...
It's true. Yeah, I second all of that. Super nice guy, and we had a great conversation about elephants in Magic. And I've been wanting to, and this episode kind of feeds into it. I've been wanting to talk to people about their favorite creature types recently. One of J-Ro's favorite creature types is elephants, so we did a whole episode on it, and it was just a ton of fun. Yeah, super nice, great, a great member of the community on Twitter, always super nice, hyping people up, and amazing shout out. So happy to do a community spotlight on J-Ro. I also have really enjoyed the EDH Rec series that he's been doing on the weekly most built commanders, the top 10 commanders every week, and it's really interesting to see week by week which ones move up or down a space and which like new cards kind of pop in on that list. I've really enjoyed reading those. Okay, I think it's time. I'm excited to talk about some rats, which is, you know, thinking about it outside of Magic context, is kind of a strange creature type to care about in like a fantasy game. But when you look at how cool the rats are in Magic, you know, there's no denying that they are awesome. So let's get into
rats
it.
in real life, I will not tolerate rat slander of any kind. Rats are lovable little fellas.
It's true. I do enjoy when I'm going to the pet store to get worms for my axolotl. I always look at the mice and the rats, and they're so cute. Like, how could you not love them?
Exactly.
All right, yeah, let's kick things off with our first question for you, which is, who is your commander and what inspired you to build this deck in the first place?
So, the answer to both of those questions are very different, because my commander is Greasefang, Okiba Boss. But I've wanted to build rats since I started playing Commander, because I really, really loved Rat Colony.
Ooh, yeah.
Because my first set was actually Dominaria, where Rat Colony was printed.
Yeah.
And I just saw the card and was like, that's rad. But I never had enough money to buy like 40 of them to have just a deck full of Rat Colonies.
Yeah.
Then we got the latest Kamigawa set, which brought more rats out, and I pulled first the Alt Art Foil Nashi Moonsage's Scion, which I was like, oh shit, this has got to go in a deck. I've got to build a deck using this. And I bought the Precon, the vehicle Precon, which was just full of really good vehicle stuff. And then I pulled the Alt Art Foil Greasefang, and I was like, shit, this motherfucker's hot. I'm going to build rats on motorcycles.
So good. That is the origin story of, like, I'm sure countless commander decks is exactly
this
that.
This is a 4-year arc. Since the start of Magic, this deck has been just brewing and building, and now it's here.
I love it. So, yeah, I think the 2018 Dominaria set, a perfect set to like start getting into Magic. I think that set was awesome. And Rat Colony was also one of my favorite parts of that deck, or of that set's release. I had the Marinar deck built before then, but it wasn't based on the kind of like older version of Rat Colony, Relentless Rats. It just had a ton of different rats. But when Rat Colony came out, I kind of did the same thing. I was like, okay, I need to incorporate these into this deck because they're too cool and I love them. So yeah, I love that you kind of had the idea already going on, and then sounds like Greasefang came around and was just perfect for it.
I love Greasefang.
Yeah, could you actually read us off what Greasefang does exactly? Because it's pretty spicy.
Yes, Greasefang is 1 white and a black for a 4/3. So already it's not that bad of a return, especially in Commander, because Commander damage is pretty important. For a legendary creature, Rat Pilot, whose effect is, at the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step.
That's cool. I like that it's every turn you basically get to like get a vehicle back from the graveyard, and then it also gets haste, so you can attack with it. That's really cool.
Plus, it returns it to your hand, which is a really important line of text on that card.
I like that. And so I can see how this would go really well with Rat Colony, because Rat Colonies give each other power boosts, and you need the power in order to crew your vehicles. So I can see that working out really nicely.
It's just really fun. After I got some new rat cards today from a trade that I did with someone over Twitter, and now it is more like Rat Tribal instead of rats on motorcycles, but there's still some vehicles there.
I love it. Got to keep at least a few motorcycles, just so you can say rats with motorcycles.
There's like 11 vehicles there, so you know.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like in vehicle related decks, you actually probably don't need as many vehicles as you need. So around 11 sounds about right for what I would think. So I like it. And you kind of hinted at it already, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about when it comes to the history of this deck and maybe some like recent changes that you've made to it?
Yeah, well, as I said, I took out some just random cards that were in there for the sake of being in there to put more rats in there, and that's just what's gonna keep happening because I'm gonna buy more rat colonies and more relentless rats, and I'm gonna buy a Maronora eventually because I don't have one, and that makes me sad. And it might just be that the deck becomes rat tribal with a little splash of white in there.
I like it. It kind of always like constantly evolving, which I think a lot of people's commander decks are set up to be. So yeah, I like it. Okay, so my next question for you is, what is it that you just enjoy the most about playing this deck? What about it kind of like brings you joy?
I just really love rats. And like drawing a rat makes me smile. Playing a rat makes me smile. Attacking with a rat makes me smile. Just having rats, and I just love rats.
That's great. We could I probably should just have you on in the future to just do an entire episode about rats and Magic, because I'm already like, that's kind of how I was too. I just saw a lot of the older kind of rat cards in Magic, especially from the 90s, just kind of have the ugliest arts on them, and they just make me so happy. I mean that in like an endearing way. Like I love them so much for looking so weird, and I just can't get enough. I'm like, I have to build a deck around these silly little guys.
They're all so beautiful.
It's true. I've also found that a lot of rats have really good like strong effects. Like Pack Rat comes to mind. It makes token copies of itself that get bigger and bigger based on the rats that you have. Do you have any like particularly favorite rats in this deck that you want to shout out?
Definitely Nashi Moonsage's Scion, mostly because it's a rat on a motorcycle, but also because the effect's just fucking dope. Normally it's a 1 black for a 3/2, but it has ninjutsu for 3 and a black, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library. Until end of turn, you may play one of those cards, and if you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost.
That's really good. As soon as Kamigawa came out, I put this card in my rat deck, and I don't think I've played it yet, or at least played it and had it survive long enough to do the thing. So yeah, it seems really cool. Have you gotten to steal some good stuff off of it playing this card?
Not often. People do like killing it immediately.
Yes, they do.
Which is fair, because if they don't, then they're going to have their stuff stolen, and no one likes that, except for me.
And me too. So I totally get it. Nice. Yeah, I really like that one. And just a quick shout out also to the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty alternate arts. All of them are just so cool, and this one in particular, since Nashi is a rat ninja, has the ninja border on it, which is just amazing. It's all spiky and like futuristic, and I really like that a lot. So yeah, definitely keep up with the alt arts, all the people from Wizards who are listening to this right now.
Print more rats.
Yeah, and print more rats, please. Cool, I love it. So could you walk me through what the goals are of this deck? Kind of like what your game plan is when you're playing it?
Do I really have to spell it out for you? It's play rats. That's it. That's the game plan. Play rats.
Simple enough. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, I definitely... So we'll have to compare our decks later. I think there are some pretty spicy rats that help with your entire... Like, if you have lots of rats on board, they can make it pretty deadly. Yeah, I'm into it. As far as the vehicles portion of this goes, do you have a favorite vehicle in this deck that you think kind of, like, fits really nicely?
My favourite vehicle in this deck is a card called Reckoner Bankbuster. And you guess why it is my favourite vehicle.
I am not familiar with this card, so you'll have to teach me about it.
The alt art, it's a Kamigawa Neon Dynasty card. The alt art is rats on motorcycle.
Nice. You're really...
It's also really good.
Okay, yeah, I just pulled it up. That is so good. Oh, man. Okay, yeah, I love that. Yeah, would you like to read off what this card does? It's really cool.
Reckoner Bankbuster is a 2-cost artifact vehicle. It's a 4/4. Enter the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. You can pay 2 and tap it to remove a charge counter from it and draw a card. Then, if there are no charge counters on it, you create a treasure token and a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. It also has crew free.
I like that. So if you don't need a vehicle or a bigger creature, you can just spend a couple turns tapping it to draw a card, which is always a good thing. Yeah, and then it spits out a pilot at the end, which is pretty cool that you can use that on your other vehicles, and treasure tokens are always good. And it looks like, so once it runs out of charge counters... Oh, okay, never mind. So you can only do the pilot and the treasure token once. For a second, I was like, maybe you can do that like multiple times, but looks like since it's a part of the cost to remove a charge counter, you won't be able to. But it's still really cool. And like you said, the alt art is a bunch of rats on motorcycles like heisting a bank, which is... how could it get any better than that? That's so good.
Well, the flavor of the card is great because you're removing charge counters from it to draw cards, which is a way of looting. And when you run out of charge counters, running out of time, you create a treasure, which is everything you've stolen, and a pilot, and that pilot can crew the vehicle, which is a motorcycle, to get away.
That's so good. It tells an entire story in one card, and I think that's beautiful.
Also got rats on it.
Also, it's got rats on it, so...
Shot every time I say rats.
That would be a fun drinking game for this episode. Starting now.
Die.
Make yourself a nice mojito and then just take a little sip. Anyway, so thank you. Yeah, thank you for talking me through that. I'm loving it so far. What would you say are this deck's weaknesses? Maybe some things that it doesn't do super well against, or other decks that it has a hard time beating.
Anything like creature removal, because it's very heavily into the creatures. It does not defend well against. It doesn't play well against stacks, but neither does anything.
Fair.
Also, overall, it's just not the most powerful deck because it's trying to be 2 different decks at once.
Okay, gotcha. You mean like a rats focus deck and a vehicle deck at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've had a few decks that kind of split their focus that way, and I do think Greasefang kind of does a really good job of bridging the gap there by being a rat and caring about vehicles. But yeah, I wonder if there are other cards that contribute to both paths. Do you have any in the deck that are both somehow contribute to rats and also vehicles, or is that something that maybe we should ask for them to create more of in the future?
Well, a couple of the Neon Dynasty cards, there's Nezumi Prowler, who gets no, not that one. It's Nezumi Blade Blesser gets Death Touch as long as you can control an artifact, and the vehicles are all artifacts. The ninjutsu ones work well with vehicles. But that's not a full synergy. That's just because the vehicles attack, and then you can return the vehicles to your hand.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that goes along with what Greasefang is doing anyway, where you get one attack out of the vehicles, and then they go back to your hand. So, yeah, I could see that working really nicely with ninjutsu abilities. Nice.
Ninjutsu is very fun.
Yes, totally agree. This is a little off topic, but I have a Satoru Umezawa ninjutsu deck that is based all around demons. And it's really cool because you can play all these like really expensive mana-wise demons for only 4 mana and ninjutsuing them in, and it's really fun. I've had a good time with that deck. So yeah, I'm a big fan of ninjutsu, and I love that they kind of combined rats and ninjas in a few different ways in Kamigawa. And also, just to kind of keep ranting about this, in an article that Mark Rosewater published a few days ago about the state of like design in Magic for the past year, he said that Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was the best set of the year in terms of design. And I totally agree with that. I thought it was such a cool set, and a big part of that I think is because of all of the really cool rats and the things that they did with them. So yeah, fully on board with calling that the best set of 2022.
I 100% agree. It gave us rats.
I love it. Sticking to the things that we love, and I love seeing new versions of them too. So cool. All right, my next question for you is: are there any notable cards you would like to shout out that maybe fit just like kind of generic roles of a commander deck, like card draw or mana ramp or removal, but are maybe a little bit more exciting for this deck specifically?
Well, there is Crypt Rats, which I think's really great. That's 2 and a black for a 1/1, and it has pay X. Crypt Rats deals X damage to each creature and each player. Spend only black mana on X.
Yeah, I actually was thinking of this card earlier when we were talking about rats that are really good, just in general. This one, it's literally a rat that's a board wipe, right? So good.
Yeah, there are other cool things you can do with it. If you pay X is equal to 10, or X is equal to 9, and use Tainted Strike, it deals 9 infect to everyone, and then you just proliferate, and you win the game.
Oh, wow, really? So because it's the rat itself dealing the damage to the players if it gets infect. Okay, that's really cool. I didn't think of that. I like it. Yeah, thank you for teaching me new things about rats, which is great. Even though I've been playing them for a long time, I never thought about that interaction. That's really cool. So my next question for you is, do you have any pet cards in the deck? Which might be, maybe that's a poor phrasing considering that this is a rat deck, or maybe it works out perfectly. But yeah, do you have any pet cards that you just can't resist playing in this deck and you love to see?
I'll talk about a non-rat card to throw a wrench in the works, even though I could easily just pick a rat card right now. Body Count from Streets of New Capenna. In this deck, holy shit, everyone wants to board wipe all your rats, so they board wipe your rats, and then you draw a card for each creature that died under your control this turn.
I like that. So the goal is for you to have a ton of creatures on board, a ton of little rats running around, and then, yeah, this is a great way to just draw a ton of cards off of them. Have you had any games recently where you've been able to pull that off?
I played it in the last game that I played, but only drew a couple cards off of it because I board wiped myself and their board because they had way more creatures than me. And I thought, you know what, I might as well cast this. Because it's got Spectacle, so it only costs 1 mana if an opponent's lost life.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I think it's important to get things like that, things like card draw that you just need all the time, but, have them be thematic to the deck somehow. So this one is, perfect for that. Awesome. Do you have any other, pet cards you want to shout out while we're kind of on the subject? Any honorable mentions?
Universal Automaton's really cool because it's a shapeshifter, so it's just a really funky looking rat.
Yeah, that's something I haven't brought up in the creature types episodes I've done so far is shapeshifters. They kind of are a really nice way to fill in gaps in your deck if you picked a creature type that might not have enough creatures that you want to play. So yeah, that one's great. It's just 1 mana for a 1/1 shapeshifter, right?
Yeah, and people don't really block it because it's 1 damage, so it's the best way to ninjutsu stuff out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I can't remember what it's called. There's one that can't block and can't be blocked. That's a changeling. and I played in my demons deck for exactly that reason, so I can ninjutsu out some demons. But it feels nice that it is also a shape-shifting demon as well. So, yeah, that's really cool. I'm a big fan of playing cards like that. I think for me, trying to build an ooze deck and only having like 15 good oozes that I want to play, adding a few sweet like changelings or shapeshifters in there to kind of fill that out is always a good idea, and also makes the deck function a little bit better. So, yeah, I like that. That's a good pet card to shout out. Okay, so my next question for you is, what is your MVP in the deck, or the card you think is like the most synergistic or powerful with your deck's strategy?
Rat Colony.
Love it.
Just gets really big.
Yeah. That's it's been a favorite of mine for a long time. I'll read it off really quick. So Rat Colony is 1 and a black for 2/1 rat. And it gets +1/+0 for each other rat you control. So they don't have to be rat colonies. It can just be any rats you've got. And a deck can have any number of cards named rat colony. So, how many rat colonies are you playing in this deck, if you have that on hand?
5, because I only own 5.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, this is definitely one. It's kind of funny when this card was just printed at common. But it's already $2 for one, which is very silly. I think Shadowborn Apostles is a similar card that you can have as many of them as you want in your deck, but a lot of people didn't want to play them because they were only printed once in like a random like 2014, 2013 core set, I think. And like one copy would be $6, so you don't want to have to buy like 20 copies for your deck for whatever 20 times 6 is, $120 for a bunch of commons. So yeah, hopefully you're able to kind of pick up some more rat colonies here and there and add them to your deck.
Hopefully. I've been focusing any cards that I get onto another deck that I'm building. It's just a happy little coincidence that I started talking to someone on Twitter about Magic, and we looked at each other's binders, and they had loads of rats in there. And I was like, oh shit, you've got, like, they had ink eyes. And I was like,
nice.
Shit, I want that ink eyes.
Yeah, I like that a lot. For a little while, last year, I started a trading channel on the Faerie Conclave Discord. And it worked out pretty well for a while. I think trading is something that we don't do very often. I think most people tend to just sell their cards and then buy new ones. But there's something very satisfying about finding somebody and just being like, okay, straight across, I'll give you these 5 cards, you give me those 3. The value is pretty close, and we don't really care too much about that anyway, so let's trade them across for, I'll give you these cards I'm not using so that you can actually use them, and vice versa. I think more people should do that, so I'm glad that you're able to, find someone to trade with on Twitter. That's really cool.
I also got a really, really good card for a new deck, and just a couple of little fun ones.
Nice, yeah. Sweet. Yeah, we'll have to get a game in sometime soon. I would love to have kind of like a rat off one of these days.
That sounds sexy.
Yeah, that came out a little bit different than intended, but
it's perfectly on brand for me.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Sweet. So my next question for you is, what has been your favorite in-game moment that you've had while playing this deck?
Well, I've played it twice, so there's not many moments I can pick from. I will pick from the game that I played before this recording session, where I just kept playing rats. I was playing with Will, formerly Will of the Completion. Don't know if that's still his Twitter handle.
Oh, sounds familiar on Twitter. Sometimes I know people by their Twitter handles before their names, which is kind of silly.
He rebranded recently to the Phyrexian, and is one of like the key players in the like Phyrexians for Trans Lives. And also follow Will at the Phyrexian, spelled ThePhIrexian. But follow Will. But what happened was I kept playing rats, and I just kept attacking Will. And it was just quite funny, because then Will just kept attacking me, and I drew into my board wipe, and knew that I could probably get enough power to then kill Will the next turn. And so, like, hey, Will, if I don't attack you this turn, will you not kill me? And he agreed and proceeded to kill the other two players. I got him down to 1 health in my next turn, and he didn't draw any answers. And I just thought that was pretty great that I managed to politic with my rats.
Yeah, isn't it funny when a commander game comes down to something like that? You're like, okay, we've got an alliance, let's make it work. And then, eventually there can only be one person remaining, so somebody's gotta betray somebody at some point. So yeah, I really like that. That was fun. I feel like I have more rat thoughts in my mind, so I'll keep thinking about that. But the last question I've got for you today is, what advice would you give to players who are interested in building either a rats deck or just a Greasefang deck in general? Do you have any advice you would like to give to them?
If you want to build Greasefang, I would highly recommend going in the more vehicle-orientated direction, because that's what she's meant to do. If you want to build rats, I'd go with mono black, with something probably like Marinora, because that's just generic rat commander. We need more rat commanders.
Yeah.
I really like playing Greasefang, and Greasefang will stay as my commander even in the event that all the vehicles come out of this deck, because I like having the ability of having white in this deck, because I like having Swords to Plowshares, I like having some protection spells, even some like lesser known white spells like Mandate of Peace. I love that card, and I'm glad it's in this deck. Also saved me from Will in the same game. There's just some good white cards that I like using.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think most people who go to build a like purely rats deck, like probably around Rat Colony or something like that, will go with Marinar as the commander, or a mono black commander. But maybe not the best option in like every category. Best for like making a bunch of rats, but I do think there's a lot of value to adding white to the deck, because one thing I've noticed for my mono black rats deck is if there's an enchantment out or an artifact out, it's really hard to get rid of. There's like very few removal spells for those types of things. And yeah, other things like that black isn't as good as white at. It makes a lot of sense. You add white in, you can add some better removal spells, and better protection spells for your board of rats. I think that makes a lot of sense. And even if your commander doesn't make rats as fast as like Marinar does, it still is able to contribute to the strategy by adding white. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I don't think I'd have as much fun if the deck was mono black with Marinora.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I totally understand that. I think it's always fun to, if you have kind of a deck strategy you're working on, looking at not just like the most obvious commander for that strategy, but also other commanders that maybe have different color combinations that will kind of like go along with your strategy a bit better, and considering those options too. Yeah, so Greasefang will definitely be staying as the commander for this deck, which makes a lot of sense. I think also the art plays an important role in this. Like if you love an art very much, you're just going to make it work, right? Like that's how it's going to be. Yeah, and I mean also, since this is technically a vehicles commander, they have been making a few vehicles here and there almost every set that comes out. So maybe Dominaria will have like the new Dominaria coming later this year. Maybe that one will have more vehicles that will somehow interact with rats or protect them or something like that. And you can...
I would just like a new rat card. Dominaria is where we got Rat Colony.
It's true. Yeah, maybe we'll get a new one kind of like Rat Colony. That would be pretty cool too. I love it. Well, as we kind of head towards wrapping things up today, is there anything else you would like to talk about when it comes to your Greasefang deck?
I think I've pretty much said everything that needs to be said. I'm obsessed with rats.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, and as far as your presence out there in the Magic community, would you like to give us your Twitter handle? And I know you recently set up a Discord where people are playing Commander. Would you like to shout that out and talk about that a little bit?
Oh, hell yeah. I made that Discord just because I wanted to play some Commander with my little old buddies. But I put it on my Twitter and everyone just kept joining it, which was pretty cool. And now there's games going on in there like every day that I don't even play in. And that's quite cool to see.
That's awesome. And can we find the link to join that Discord on your Twitter somewhere?
Yeah, it's in my pinned tweet at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, I loved it. I joined, and within like 10 minutes of me joining, like 30 other people joined as well. So love to see that. Yeah, really excited about that. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for joining me and, taking the time to talk about Greasefang, Okiba Boss, and Rat Colony, and all the other rats that we know and love. Thank you so much.
I had fun. Thank you for immediately accepting my offer when I said rats on motorcycles.
Oh, yeah, of course. You were just speaking my language, and I needed to make it happen. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Awesome. Okay, yeah, so definitely go give all those things a look. Definitely join Proxy's Discord. I am excited to play some games in there, and it's going to be a good time. And, yeah, so if you want to find any more of my stuff, I'm at TFC_MTG on Twitter and Instagram. I also have a Discord you can hop into if you'd like. And these episodes will be on your favorite podcast platform and also on YouTube. Check out the YouTube. I'm excited about that. I've been having fun like making thumbnails for my YouTube videos. So pretty cool to get into that. I think that's all for today. So besides all that, have a good rest of your day, and I hope to catch you again next time.